Welcome to this new episode of Papa PhD. Today, I have the pleasure of having with me Diana Horqque. Diana is the executive director of V1 Studio, a nonprofit organization affiliated with Concordia University that partners with Canada's best scientific entrepreneurs to bring their research from lab to market through the convergence of emerging technologies, science, and leadership. As part of her role at V1 Studio, Diana leads two main programs: the Quebec Scientific Entrepreneurship Program, which is an online lab-to-market program that gives scientists an entrepreneurial mindset to transform their academic research into tangible, innovative products and services. And she also leads the Scientific Venture Program, which is a 2-year all-in-one postdoc program specifically targeted at PhDs to accompany them throughout the different stages of developing their research from lab to market. So for people who watch or listen to Papa PhD, this is really for you. Welcome to Papa PhD, Diana.
Thank you. Yes, it's a perfect target audience.
Yes, yes. So that's why I'm super happy to have you here, and that we met, that we connected, and that you end up being here on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation.
So yeah, I think today we should focus on letting people know what these projects are, what V1 Studio does. Can you, based on what I just said, do you have a word of introduction of you, V1 Studio, to the audience? Based on what I just said.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a very great explanation of the two things that we mainly do. I'll talk a little bit about V1 and I guess where it started. V1, as you said, it's a nonprofit organization that basically want to give the opportunities to researchers to explore entrepreneurship. Like it's as simple as that. We want you to see these are the opportunities in entrepreneurship, not necessarily for them to build businesses all the time, but at least to acknowledge that yeah, there are certain skills that could potentially have an impact in how I'm even doing my research and how I'm planning my roadmap as a researcher. No, that's on one side. So really about exploring entrepreneurship. And the other thing is for the ones that do want to take that jump, we want to help them in that transition from the lab into this crazy world of entrepreneurship because we know that it's not the same, right? Like there's so many challenges.
Yeah.
It's so hard, and it can get very lonely too. So we as an organization we want to help them in each step, from the moment they have an idea and to I don't even know who to talk to
Hmm.
demystify entrepreneurship and help them in different ways, including not only access to coaches, for example, both people from the business side, but also from the academic world, that have a little bit of experience there, but also through just that leadership mindset as well, so they can
Hmm.
develop their own personal skills, that human transformation. So in general, like that's what we care about everyone. And
Hmm.
the reason why we do it kind of like started with the idea that there is so many researchers here in Canada, and our services are across Canada, that when they finish their PhD, they don't necessarily know where to go. And that's why I said like this is a great, it's a perfect target segment
Hmm.
because they think about what are the opportunities in academia, but they don't even think about what are the opportunities outside. And they can use the knowledge that they have created to have a different type of impact in society too. So it kind of came from that idea and using that knowledge within Canada.
Hmm. So that brings me to a question, which is, you know, you might think if I go back to when I was a graduate researcher,
Yeah,
I might have thought, okay, people who do engineering, okay, there's some, entrepreneurship and engineering, easy to make a link.
yeah,
People who study business, who study marketing, easy to make a link. And what you're telling me is you're trying to bridge the gap between people who are doing research in different domains, and we'll talk about that. I'd like to know if there's a specific a gamut of domains, or if it's social sciences or hard sciences or natural or life sciences. all mixed together. But for people who are watching and are like scratching their head and saying, well, I'm at the lab doing this like basic research, how can this become an entrepreneurial endeavor?
Yeah.
Do you have an answer for them? And
Well,
and and are they part of
yeah,
your target audience?
yeah. You know what? Like, so there is two things. On one side, we start with a simple question on like, why are you doing this research? Why does anyone care about it? Like as simple as that. It's like what
Mm-hmm.
type of impact they can have, even if it doesn't become a startup, as I said, like it maybe it doesn't. But at least thinking about what are the ramifications and the potential impact that it can have in the future, it starts to get them into that entrepreneurial mindset. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, someone that is in lab are kind of like, okay, I don't see a connection. I tell you, there is always a connection. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that you need to take tiny steps to get you into that mindset thinking that is going to help you move forward in your path, whatever you are in your journey. Sometimes it's super early stage or early career,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes even farther away. Like we do work with certain professors that have been in academia for 20 years,
Okay.
and they never thought about entrepreneurship, and now they're kind of seeing the value that it can have. And the great thing that we're seeing is that cultural change in Canada, because
Mm-hmm.
maybe they won't be entrepreneurs, but they would encourage their students or people in the lab to think like an entrepreneur again,
Mm-hmm.
and continue working research so they can see the impact. So that's one thing. The other one, what you made me think about when you were saying this, we actually had an event this week where one of our alumni from the QCSC program, which is again just the goal is to explore entrepreneurship. That's it. It's just 3 months, very light. He said, one of the things that he loved about the program is that he could continue studying. He's in the process of doing his PhD. He's actually in the last year, and he could continue writing his thesis while he was doing this program. Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
designed in that way. And he was saying how one of his biggest regrets was that he didn't do it earlier in his PhD. He
Mm-hmm.
said, like, you know what? If I would have known, if I would have at the beginning, like in my first year, when there is not a lot of craziness yet, there's not it,
Tension and stress.
exactly
Yes.
like it's right there in first year. Said like I would have probably planned my research in a different way because I would have thought about the long term impact, the potential of commercialization, even though maybe again he doesn't take it to the market,
Mm-hmm.
he can hold that baton of research,
Of
and then
course.
when he's done, because everything was laid out, he can pass it to someone else that can potentially do it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. So yes, like if you're doubting, at least take the step of seeing, spending 1 or 2 hours asking questions and what is entrepreneurship, because there is already a lot of skills that I think PhDs have that are completely transferable into entrepreneurship. It's just we don't think about that way because we don't know what entrepreneurship is. It's kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to demystify that.
So you touched on a very important point there, and thinking of my time in graduate school, time would have been, a very sensitive issue.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about what sort of investment of time, if you engage and enroll and get into the program, what's it going to demand of you in terms of time and participation?
Yeah, so for QCSC is it's an online program first of all. So we run it 3 times a year,
Okay.
and it's 3 hours a week, but it's only 1 hour in like in an online class. So we have
Okay.
workshops every week. It's just 1 hour where we give the opportunity. It's working time, so we give knowledge, but they also get to work at the same time, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe like 2 hours depending on how fast you're watching videos. So we have a couple of videos, and that's it for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So um, it's super manageable because it was designed for people that are doing their PhD, and they're super busy. We know that it's not like a 30-hour job, right? Like we know it's like spend a lot of time. So we were thinking about that when the program was being designed. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the commitment, just to explore entrepreneurship.
That is super interesting, and I'm sure it's super enriching. It's interesting that you mentioned having an alumnus coming to talk about and giving his feedback and wanting to have started earlier. So So again, what this is telling me is that no matter what stage you are at in your PhD, you are eligible to to enroll. First
Yeah,
year,
exactly.
last year, middle.
Yeah, even if you finished, like actually QCSE, if you're done, you can still join. We're still gonna accept you. And QCSE, so the Quebec Scientific Entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
our program is specifically for any student in Quebec, any candidate in Quebec. But and this is kind of like the news. I don't know if I can share it right away, but we're actually bringing the program nationally. So
Okay.
we're working with two partners in Dalhousie in Nova Scotia and Ryerson in Ontario, who are going to be running our program, but in
Okay.
other
With
provinces to be able
their
to
own
give the
cohorts.
opportunity.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's super exciting. And we're actually already working with other partners to extend it to all provinces across Canada. So we're really
Hmm.
bringing it national. And this is a program that we have been running for 3 years. And I
Okay.
can say that even the curriculum is not the same from the moment we started. Like it's
Hmm.
entrepreneurship moves and the program evolves with it. So that's why we're even more excited because now we get to leverage knowledge across Canada to continue to
Hmm.
improve the program together. So we're not alone. And it's exciting to have partners that believe in the same mission.
Hmm.
So now even if there is people, even if they're not in those provinces, we're gonna accept them anyway because we really
Okay.
believe that it's a great program and it's an opportunity and it's free. In our case, thanks to the FRQ, so the Fonds de Recherche du Québec, they're the ones, thanks to them, we managed to create the program because they believe in it.
Hmm.
And that's why it's open in Quebec. And now, thanks to my tax, we're able to expand it across nationally too.
This is amazing, and it's interesting. Those are two names that just came up in my previous interview. The
Oh, yeah.
FRQ, yes, and my tax. So I'm happy. I'm happy that you're mentioning them now. But one thing that because today I really wanted people to kind of get a peek of what they can get, and because I think there's two things. I'd really love someone who had no idea of going into entrepreneurship, coming out of seeing this interview and saying, you know what, this is free. The time investment is not too much. It's tried and tested. You've been doing it for 3 years already. I'm gonna jump in. That and also people who already have this curiosity or will to go into entrepreneurship to know a little bit more of, okay, what am I getting? You've talked about 1 hour, which I imagine on a sort of a video conference
Yeah.
with a cohort. Then you've talked about time viewing videos that you've prepared. Is there
Yeah.
some other aspect of coaching or one-on-one? Just if you can give a little bit
Yeah.
more details of what
Expect.
happens in those 3 months,
Yeah.
and maybe the main curricular points that you want to get
Sure.
people to learn.
So for QCSC, sorry, we
Hmm.
start with really like the first 3 weeks are about more exploration, let's say, and demystifying
Okay.
entrepreneurship. So we talk about what is entrepreneurship, what is scientific entrepreneurship. When we talk about innovation, what does it mean? Like all of these words that we keep saying all the time that sometimes
Hmm.
end up having no meaning. We go into okay, this is what it actually means. So we give that vocabulary, and we actually have a new sort of session where um, this is a program for people that have an idea or as you said that have no idea either, so we help them come up, maybe start thinking about in a playful way. Is there a startup in your PhD, for example, right? It's like, is
Hmm.
there something maybe already there? So it's just for them to have an initial point. So that's kind of like the beginning. Let's explore entrepreneurship. What are the possibilities? Let's talk about certain very well known tools that we use across the world, really, in the startup ecosystem.
Hmm.
Like for example, the business model canvas. Like we start to explain them, like this is what it means, and this is why it's important, and some key points.
Hmm.
So then in the next 6 weeks, I'm not mistaken, 6 weeks, yes, we dive into okay, let's talk about different pieces of a business that may be overwhelming when you think it separately, but
Hmm.
let's put it in like a one page strategy and start thinking about them, and what are the specificities about scientific entrepreneurship, because it's not the same when you
It's not
build
the same,
something that is
yeah.
deep tech than when you're doing just, I don't know, like an app in your computer in your basement and that's it, right? it's
Yeah.
it's different. There's different challenges when we talk about, maybe healthcare. Like we need to think about the approvals when we talk about bio, like
Hmm.
it's so we talked about those important pieces, like who may be a potential customer, who are potential partners that you have to interact with, what makes your project unique as well, how are you differentiating yourself from the competitors, how do you start thinking about pricing, like little things like that, but not they're key, but not too much in depth that you get overwhelmed. And I think this
Hmm.
this is super important, because what one of the reasons why we wanted to create this program to make it specific for researchers was that we had noticed, and I didn't talk about myself, but I used to work at District 3 Innovation Center. So we've worked with a lot of scientific entrepreneurs for the past years. We have worked with more than 600 entrepreneurs in the past. Like we have seen this, we have this knowledge, and we noticed that a lot of researchers that would get into the typical incubators, if they had an idea, they would get overwhelmed. But the amount of information they would receive like
Hmm.
this, and they had to catch up very quickly, right? And it's hard. So we decided, okay, let's first show them the vocabulary. This is what it means slowly. So then, if they have the time, if they do decide to jump into entrepreneurship, then we go more in depth and allow them to go into more detail. So that's kind of like the second phase. And then the third phase, once you have this sort of idea, again, this strategy on one paper, um, how do you actually tell to the world that this is what you're working on? So then
Hmm.
we talk about pitching, right? How do you communicate your innovation, your scientific project, to the world without being too technical, so people understand it,
Hmm.
but they also see the impact that you potentially have in the future. So those are kind of like the big phases. And what it's very interesting for our participants, something that they love, is that we actually do this in collaboration with, not only universities, but also with a lot of partners in the ecosystem. So we have
Hmm.
guests that come and give some of the workshops. So you get to connect potentially with future incubators. Even though you're so early,
Hmm.
you start having that relationship to get outside of your common network. You start expanding your network. We invite scientific entrepreneurs that not only, maybe they've only been in their journey for 3 years, some of them maybe 7. So you get to compare what are the challenges that they faced that you need to have in mind. We actually give them the opportunity to pitch in front of incubators and
Okay.
ecosystem experts, so they get the feedback right away and they implement it and they pitch again. And we have seen that some cases, actually, incubators send us a message saying like, hey, I want to accept this person. Do you mind putting me in contact right away? I'm like, amazing. Like, that's good. And if it's something that
Perfect.
they're interested in, then at least they can make the decision, right? It's like, yeah, I want to
Yeah.
do it, or maybe not yet, maybe later. That's okay.
I really love that, and I was going to ask whether there was some interfacing with people, from the ecosystem, and it's super good news. I'm super happy to hear that it is the way it's set up, because one of the things that I've mentioned in different, or that I've covered in different interviews on Papa PhD with different guests, is this importance, or well, let's put it in another way. There's a barrier to entry
Yeah.
from if you leave the bench and want to get into entrepreneurship, but also industry,
Industry. Yeah.
which is culture and terminology. And you talked about the vocabulary a lot, and it might seem weird, like why learning vocabulary is important. It is very important, because those first conversations you're going to have with different stakeholders, be it wanting to start something up, or getting into an industry, well, knowing the right terminology is really important, so that you're taken seriously on that first approach, and that then you can go to further conversations. I really, really, really love it, and I think it's a really, really smart way to go about it. And
Mhm.
I really, really think that anyone who's listening, watching, and who has this, itch to dip their toe in the entrepreneurship pool, I think they need to go to get onto your program.
Yeah, and again, like it's fun because we have so much diversity, and that's, I think, a important point, because you kind of ask about what are the, the sectors, that we actually get from all sectors, right?
Hmm.
And we give different examples so they can feel like, okay, they see someone that is maybe closer to the sector, specifically. So mainly, like, we accept everyone, but we receive a lot of people coming from life science, people in just in STEM in general, in STEM, like, those are the big bulk of our um, applicants. But we have people in education, we have people in anthropology, like,
Hmm.
it's super interesting. And I think the fact that they get to connect and hear each other's ideas also sparks more ideas, because that
Hmm.
multidisciplinary is super important for innovation. Like, we know this, right? Like, we know that it's key. And I think the fact that they have the opportunity to connect from people from other disciplines, from other universities, from other labs, maybe sometimes other provinces, like, it's super valuable for
Yeah,
them. You never know who that person may introduce you to in the future, right?
of course. No, the aspect of networking for sure is important, not only with people who come and present, but also with your cohort. Now,
Exactly.
one thing that I feel that's important in this whole process is maybe even, you know, changing someone's mindset from, oh, this is a crazy idea, to, you know what, no, I can make this happen because this person who was presenting did something quite similar. And I really, really think it's a great model. Now, I'm curious, do you have feedback from people, from, let's say, 3 years ago? Do you have examples that you can share of like two kind of different projects that were born from one of these cohorts? Let's say
Yeah.
in kind of different domains.
Yeah, okay, let me think about it. Like, I mean, I have from 3 years from now. Um, there is quite a few. Actually, funny enough, like, one of my employees, she did QCSC 3 years ago, the first cohort.
Okay.
She joined. She stayed in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, decided to help other entrepreneurs. She has a background in bio, and now she just had a job in
Hmm.
industry, so she's leaving V1. We're sad, but I'm happy for her because it's great for her
Hmm.
career. And now she's going to be leading the entrepreneurial team within the new organization. So
Okay.
she moved from, and she also started her startup. Like, she, after finishing the program, she tested entrepreneurship, then she started working with incubators, then she worked with us, and now she's going to be leading her own team in industry, um,
Hmm.
to become an
Nice.
entrepreneur. So it's kind of like, and it's in her domain. She's using her knowledge, the research that she did, to have an impact in a different way. And this is, like, very
Hmm.
specific because, again, it's not someone that necessarily finished with with a startup, but got her to a different world. And that's kind of like what we want. We want to have this sort of impact. We have
Hmm.
quite a few examples, and, like, if they check on our website, you're gonna be able to see it. But one of the ones that it's super exciting, especially because I was part of the I was one of the facilitators in her cohort.
Okay.
It's Priska. So her name is Priska Bustamante. She did, if I remember correctly, maybe like a year and a half ago, the QCSC program. Her background is mainly in biology, and she did her PhD in pathology at McGill, so in
Okay.
Montreal. And for her, it was just, I just want to explore entrepreneurship. Like, she didn't know much, but she started. She wanted to accelerate the diagnosis of ocular cancers without
Hmm.
having an intrusive surgical procedure.
Okay.
So this is what she wanted to do, and she managed to develop then through her research a non-invasive methods to identify small DNA fractures in the blood. So
Oh wow.
this is, it's insane. And, like, she did in spring 2021, so not that long ago. um and now she's started to actually build her business because she got all of that knowledge to get her there. She actually earned just recently the MyTax award for outstanding innovation. which is
Oh wow.
allowing her to continue her research and work on it. And the great thing is, like, now she knows where she wants to get, right? Like, she started with this
Mhm.
idea, she has the tools, it's still early on her journey, but she's going to have a huge impact when she actually ends up building that company, and move forward in a couple
Of
of years
course,
from now. So
it's amazing.
we have, yeah, and we have quite a few. I'm trying to think, but I'm blanking. I'm like, okay,
No, no,
there's
it's fine. It's fine. That's already a good example. I just wanted people to kind of see, have an idea of what the démarche could be, what the steps can be and where you can take them. Now, another sort of feedback I'm curious about is,
yeah,
imagine, people who went through the program ended up not starting an entrepreneurial project, but who might have, and I don't know if you tried to get this feedback of, okay, even though you didn't go entrepreneurial, what do you think this brought to you, or do you think this changed maybe your view towards your PhD, or towards how you planned the next few years of your PhD, or your transition to what came after? Because I imagine
yeah.
these skills and this vocabulary, like you were saying, are not just usable in the context of starting a business.
Yeah. So actually, and this is fresh of my mind, the discussion that I was having with the alumni this week.
Hmm.
He said that because of that vocabulary, now any research project that he's going to have in mind is going to be connected always into who cares about this, what
Hmm.
type of impact that can have. But not only that, it's like, how do I phrase it in a way that even the government understands why they should fund it, like,
Hmm.
why is it important, and like all of the potential commercialization opportunities for the research that he's working on, even as he's still in academia. So I think and it was super interesting that he mentioned that, because it's not the first one that had mentioned that, but it kind of resonates into, your supervisor is going to ask you, why should I care, why anyone cares. And it's the same thing on entrepreneurship. Like, an investor is going to ask you the same way, the same thing. It's like, why should anyone care about this? And by being able to answer that question in different ways, so why do we care, into from the let's say, I'm going to say customer, but like the individual point of view, like in the
Hmm.
society, who may care from a financial point of view. And again, I'm saying financial, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be doing a for profit. We also think about, when we think about entrepreneurship, we think about money and like, oh,
Yeah.
these people, and like it's super strict. Like, not at all. Like, nonprofits also need to figure out their own business models. So you can think about different ways of having that impact. And that's kind of like, we want to demystify that. It's like, yes, you
Hmm.
can do it, and it's going to help you with your research, those skills for sure that you're going to be
Hmm.
developing.
And I'm thinking that it must also help if eventually, let's say you're in the life sciences and you go into industry, because eventually you're going to be talking with people who do,
Yeah.
who are entrepreneurs in a way, or who are managers, and some of this terminology will kind of, will match that one, and will help you have a different type of discourse and different type of interview experience also even. Now, a question I have is, because we're talking about kind of lowering the bar, the barrier to, to people just diving into the pool of or entrepreneurship, or at least learning, or kind of having a feeling of what it is really. Um, but my question to you is, you've been at D3, you have this other program, which is a later on stage program. What is it's maybe a kind of a wide question, but what place exists in the ecosystem for PhDs? So you're preparing them for this. My feeling is because you're in the know that there's place out there for them. But we, people who are going through a PhD, often we don't know that there's place for us other than in a lab. Can
Hmm.
you comment on that?
Yeah, like, what are the different potential opportunities?
Well, yeah, or even experiences things that you've seen get born out of a lab, and you've already mentioned one, but it was kind of almost a philosophical question of, can PhDs expect that the socioeconomic tissue, ecosystem other than the lab also has place for them?
Yeah, no, and 100%. Like I'm thinking about like quite a few examples. There's actually other programs out there that help with that transition too. There is this a program specifically that's coming to my mind. I'm hoping to remember the name very quickly, but it's training PhDs
Mm-hmm.
to be part of the world of the VC world, so venture capitalists.
Venture
Okay,
capital. Okay. Okay.
that's very interesting. And maybe maybe this is a future discussion, but um, the reasoning is because there's so much innovation in Canada. Like we know this. Like we are spending as a government a lot of money there, and there is a lot of knowledge that is being created, which is amazing. But unfortunately, not a lot of that knowledge is actually getting outside of the lab, and that's kind of like what I'm trying to do in a different level. Um, and the when you get into a moment that the startup needs to scale and there's certain technologies, you have a lot of entrepreneurs that are saying, I can do this, I can do that. um, that it's great to have someone that is an expert to help you assess what they're saying, does it make sense or not. And this program that I'm thinking about, that I'm trying to remember the name and I can't,
It's okay.
it's gonna come. It's actually giving them those tools to be able to use the knowledge that they have, their own expertise, to assess the future and how the technology, if there is a potential for a new technology and what type of impact they may have. So
Okay.
that knowledge already there exists. We're kind of like, there is a position for them in there in that venture capitals. We are always trying to find experts and PhDs there. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a great avenue. Of course, there is some vocabulary that needs to be learned. It's not right off the lab, but
Of course.
it's, I think, a very easy, well, I'm going to say easy, but like a good transition, let's say. We have, the example of that I was giving of Agnieszka. I'm gonna name her. Like
Okay.
she's now an entrepreneur, but using her knowledge in science to continue develop new products. So basically, in R&D in the industry. So there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely positions in there. In terms of social innovation, for example, like I have an example from QCSC specifically. His name is Brandon Junkie, his last name. And he's working on optimizing the natural capabilities of microalgae.
Okay.
So basically, he's creating food for fish. There's a big problem. Fish is fish, and because of all of the fish that we need to consume as humans,
Mm-hmm.
it's actually created a huge problem in marine life and the whole ecosystem that it's already existing. So what
Okay.
he's set up to do is to bioengineer using algae to create food for the fish. So then we don't have to go and farm from our own fish to be able to eat ourselves later.
Mm-hmm.
So he did that research and he's been developing for the past 3 years
Okay.
his solution in the bio world, and now he's actually going into testing, and it has started like as an idea because he wanted to do social innovation in the marine world.
Okay.
Like it has started just as something like that. He figure out a way to actually make it happen, and he's making it happen. um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think you have to be creative. I think you have to try to find those, I'm gonna say, a little bit of misfits, people that
Mm-hmm.
wanna go and do something different and have a
Difference.
chat with them. And there's so many examples. It's just, you just have to be exposed. And I think to be exposed, you have to get out a little bit of the lab.
Yeah.
And you're gonna find them. They're there, but you need to take that first step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I believe this cohort of people getting into the program is probably, you're gonna create these connections with them who already are in this mindset. So I don't
Exactly.
know if there've been collaborations born of these cohorts, but I think it's a natural thing to happen. I'm sharing the website also for the FRQ, because you can also find the program
Yeah.
through the Fonds de Recherche du Québec website, and for the people on YouTube, it's scrolling on the bottom of the screen here.
Yeah.
This is really really interesting, and maybe I think now we're at the point where we can talk about the current cohorts that are coming up, and any dates. Do you have dates that you can
Yeah.
share? And maybe if you have an actual URL, I can also set it up here, and we can share it on the live.
Yeah. So, sorry, I'm gonna share with
Okay.
you the application. It's right here, and I'm gonna share with you the QCSC website. The application date, it's February 2nd, so that's our deadline, and the program is starting February 7th. So in a couple of weeks from now, as I said, pretty much it's a very open program from that point of view, so you can apply. And even if you're not in Quebec, don't worry, still apply. We'll put you to the right resource. We'll figure out a way to bring you in. Like, that's our goal. We really want to support any researcher that is interested in entrepreneurship. And I'll share it, so the both QCSC, and you can see more stories. You can go more in depth into the program itself, and see more details about the curriculum too.
Now, just because you said you just shared them with me, and I'm not seeing them anywhere.
On the private chat.
Let me see.
Maybe I can send an email.
No. The private chat is perfect. It's just that, again, because I have a multi-screen setup. Let me see where it. Oh, here it is. Okay, this is where it lives. Okay, cool. Perfect. You know what? I'm going
to QCSC, maybe, yeah.
Share this and create the banner here. Okay. So if people follow this link, www.qcse.ca, they will find that the program that you just talked about. And is the link to the form where they can roll on this link on this
yeah,
page
exactly.
too?
There is just a spot that says apply now, and it would take you to the right place. Anyway, and you know what? If
Excellent.
anyone has questions, like, send us an email. Like, I love to jump on video calls. Like, you were asking, like, we do a lot of 101. We don't necessarily do a lot of 101 because we have a lot of people. But there are certain people that just need it. So we do jump once in a while and chat with them, and like, we were talking about Cindy a while ago.
Huffington, yes.
Exactly. Like, she did QCSC, and like I'm meeting with her once in a while just to catch up, and her business is growing very quickly, and it's exciting, right?
That's
so we
amazing.
love to talk with them, and from the beginning, or even when they finish, because we want to know how much of an impact it had, right? So yeah.
And for people who are curious, so the next deadline is the 23rd?
The 2nd, February 2nd.
That's the deadline? Okay. February 2nd for the next cohort, I imagine. And is there a limited amount of spots, or how does that work?
No, it's because it's online. It's quite a big cohort. So no, there is no limit as long as it happens before the deadline. And something that I'll mention: if you're in Quebec, as I said, and if you choose the French cohort, and you're under 35 years old, you actually get, it's not only free, but you can get a grant of up to $1,000 from Thanks to Logique. Yeah, like, it's you get paid to develop those entrepreneurial skills.
Okay, this is so you cannot miss this opportunity.
Yeah.
Diana, we're reaching the end of the conversation, but one thing that I would like to know or to ask is, and now you kind of surprised me with this $1,000, and I kind of lost my train of thought. But do you have, and I don't know what I wanted to ask, is there, do you guys have a Facebook group so is there a sort of community? Does a cohort then have a space where they can exchange, they can, I don't know, they can become accountability partners for each other, things like that? Is there something like that happening in the program?
Yeah, so we actually have a Slack. So anyone that gets accepted joins the Slack. We have like 600 people there.
Oh, wow.
It's of course super active when we have the actual workshops and the things, but we're actually thinking about doing something outside, so we can just open for any scientific entrepreneur that it's curious about it. So I'll share with you in the future if we ended up creating it. But for now, yeah, we have a Slack. So people, they even find sometimes the co-founders, which is exciting, you know? Very cool.
That's super super cool, and that's what I thought. So I did imagine, so people, these like-minded people in this space, but all scientifics, they're gonna meet each other and actually do projects together. It just makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's impossible not to. You get
No.
inspired right away.
This is it. I'm really really happy to that you reached out. I'm really happy to have had this conversation. And I really hope that a lot of people watch this and click on the links and go enroll, because this
Yeah.
is kind of a present, and I don't see any downside to much the opposite to enrolling in this program. So I really do recommend. So again, www.qcsc.ca. There's English and French, of course. Yeah, Diana, is there a last word you'd like to share? After this conversation, you've kind of talked about all of it.
Yeah.
Um, there's this other program we may want to talk at another time, but for people who are, because now people are at home, not being able to go to the lab, a lot of them,
Yeah.
maybe they have ideas burgeoning because of that, but
Yeah.
maybe also they feel like, oh, but I'm not an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are like gray-haired men with gray suits or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not made for this, and I'm a 24-year-old woman. I come from another continent, even, because I imagine you said that it's very diverse. The cohorts are very diverse, and I love to hear that. So
Yeah.
I just and I'm kind of rambling because I'm kind of excited about this, so I'm going to let you talk. Do you have a word of encouragement or of enticement for someone who's kind of on the fence and maybe thinking, nah, this is not for me? I think that would be the last thing I'd like you to share.
Um, yeah, I mean, you know what is one step at a time. So I think don't overthink it too much. Sometimes we want to do everything perfect. I think it's better done than perfect. And this is like in entrepreneurship, that's something that we say. It's better done than perfect. I know it's very different from in the lab, but with entrepreneurship is just test it out. There is nothing wrong, and at least if you don't like it, you have the knowledge to say this is not made for me. But don't try to put those preconceived ideas on the side
Hmm.
just for a couple of months, because you may discover something about yourself that you didn't even knew
Hmm.
you had. And I've noticed working with these entrepreneurs for the past years, passion takes you a long way. Passion can make you
Hmm.
do so much, and if you see that you can help someone, it's just gonna it's gonna move mountains. So
Hmm.
I would say, like, put the preconceived on the side, one step at a time, and at least explore. That's the minimum I think that we can do for ourselves.
Perfect. Well, I agree with you. Passion can make you do a podcast for three and a
There
half
you
years about careers for PhDs, and your PhD is like from 10 years ago. I totally agree. Plus, if I can add something, I really, really, really believe that no matter what, this is going to enrich your PhD, your research, your academic, your academic researcher journey. I really, really believe it.
go. Yeah.
Diana, thanks a lot for this.
Thank
I'm looking
you.
forward to this conversation in French, which
Yeah.
haven't scheduled yet, but
No.
we're going to have it. This is really great news. It's news for me. I'm kind of flabbergasted that it's happened. It's existed for 3 years, but because it's news for me, I imagine it might be for a lot of people, and I really really hope that coming on Papa PhD will help you guys reach more people and will help more people have kind of a more diverse experience during their graduate research experience, and then a more a softer or a smoother transition to whatever comes after, be it in the lab, be it out of the lab,
Yeah.
be it employed, or be it as an entrepreneur. Because I think this is it's a win-win no matter what if you do this.
Yeah.
Thank you
Exactly.
for having been on the show. It's really really been fun.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. It was fun, and I'm excited to continue discussing this in French too.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll again for people watching, we haven't set up a date yet, but this conversation or one similar to it is going to happen in French on the channel soon. If you're on YouTube, remember to go below here, subscribe to the Papa PhD channel, and if you want to have notifications of what's happening, because there's lives, there's different things, there's the PhD dojo, just hit the little notification bell and you'll have all the notifications. So this is it for the recording of the interview. Diana, this is really a great program. I'm really happy, and actually Agnieszka was the first person who reached out to me, and I'm really happy she did, because I think it's how can I say, it's a missed opportunity for anyone to not to be in graduate school or just finished, because you said even if you finished you can still enroll, to not know about this. So I'm really glad to have been able to carry this message for you guys. That's it. Now we're kind of back in the behind the scenes mode here on LinkedIn and on YouTube. This went. I don't know for you. This went really well for me. I really
Yeah.
am passionate about this project now. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I love talking about it. Like I think that I have like the best job because it's so good and it's exciting, and like yeah, to see how 3 months can change someone's life, it's super gratifying. So if I can do that for more people, I'm definitely gonna try to.
Yeah, no, and it must be. I think there's an aspect of revealing someone's hidden potential in it that they didn't even suspect, and for sure it must be very fulfilling. And
Yeah.
again, super happy to have had you here on the show, and looking forward to further conversations, because anytime I can help you guys reach more people, it's going to be a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you, David.
Diana, thank you. I'm going to now stop the live. And well, thank everyone who's been watching first. And if you have any questions after watching this, you're watching this later, put them on the comments on YouTube or on LinkedIn, or reach out to us. We are both on LinkedIn and easy to find. So yeah, thanks everyone, and see you on the next live.